The Lanier family's Sehoy plantation is truly a jewel of environmental excellence. Doug and Cam Lanier IV discuss one of the little extras they've done to enhance the property.
This is the entrance to our lake here, and a lot of traffic through here with guests and friends and family, and we enjoy having a pretty scenery, and a big fan of live oaks.
In order to perpetuate Sehoy in its present state, nearly 18,000 of the plantation's 27,000 plus acres are under a conservation easement with the Alabama Forestry Resource Center. Cam Lanier informs us of the reasons for choosing this avenue for the plantation's future.
The way our conservation easement was written enables us to manage it just as if it was not on the property, by creating new fields, expanding existing fields. Harvest of timber is no different than we would do if the easement was not in place. It ensures the future of the place to be managed the way we are today. Our main goal here in the management of the farm was to leave it better than we found it. And so by putting a conservation easement on here, it enables us to preserve the land for what we feel like it was put on this earth for, and to leave it for the remainder of its years for its best use.
Cam, I realize that the big thing here on Enon and Sehoy plantations is recreational and quail management and other wildlife as well. On the open lands that we see, it just looks fantastic to me of what you've done. Explain how you manage these open fields.
Well, in the management for wild birds, we've found that it's very important to have a variety of potter's pea and ragweed and lagoons, native weeds that produce insects in our open fields. And with doing that, these fields produce an abundance of grasshoppers, insects, which we call brood fields, that are used for the little birds to raise in during the summer. Now, kind of a rule of thumb we use here behind us, we have 8 rows of pines. Any field over 5 acres, we like to break it up with a row of pines.
Okay.
And it just gives the birds briar cover, nesting cover, as well as their brood habitat they need for the summer.
Resting on a cabin porch of homegrown, on-the-place lumber and timbers, Cam describes the most important use of Sehoy plantation.
These cabins, we have four cabins here on the place, and they are strategically placed to where we end up here at lunch when we're bird hunting. We have lunch brought out to us, and got fireplaces on both ends. Just a great place to get out of the weather on a day's hunt.
Okay. Well, I noticed it's made out of big timbers. It's a real log cabin. Where did this material come from? Most of
this material here is salvage wood off of the property here. We have a local guy that has a portable sawmill, and he comes right here to our woods, saws it, and we dry it and use a lot of lumber here on the farm. Great.
I noticed a few trees were beginning to fade as we drove. There's just so much of it. I mean, it's acres and acres of this, and I'm sure there's a good bit of salvage available to do things like this.
Yes, sir. We try to use our salvage wood as much as possible, whether it be sheds or barns or whatnot here on the farm.
Great. Your bird hunting, is it from wagons, on horseback, on foot? How do you normally do your hunting here? It is a commercial operation, I understand.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All of our hunting is horseback with a mule-drawn wagon.
Okay.
We try to stick to the old traditional style, old plantation style of hunting. If guests do not want to ride a horse, then they can ride on the wagon, but it's cross-country hunting. the open landscape, rolling hills. That's how our hunting's done, is mainly off of horseback.
And I guess most of these are probably wild birds. It looks like from your habitat that you probably have a lot of wild birds out here.
Yes, sir. We have been real successful in trying to get the wild birds back here on the place. And as we talked about before, the brood fields are a vital part of our wild bird population.
If you think young loblolly pines in their 7th growing season can't be prescribed burned, think twice. These young pines have been. Cam, you're telling me that this is going into its 7th growing season, and you've burned it twice already.
Yes, sir.
How do you do that? A lot of people would be afraid to do that or say it can't be done.
We either do a night burn or either pick a day when conditions are right to just a slow creeping backfire through here, and we feel that it's very important to start as quick as you can to keep the understory clean.
Hey Doug, Jason Martin.
Hi, Jason.
Mr. Doug, John Stivers. Good to meet you.
Glad to meet you. These are the two foresters that work with the Lanier family in managing the Sehoy and Enon plantation. I want them to tell you how they manage the hardwood bottoms on this property as they do managing all of the property itself. John, when you see a beautiful cherry bark oak like this and you look at all the good lean and clean ones out through there, it's really a magnificent stand to work with. But how do you handle these stands here on Sehoy and Enon Plantation?
All right, Doug, you're right. When you see these stands, and they're really rare to find this kind of a stand these days, and to think about it, here on the farm, there's 5,400 acres that looks a lot like this.
Wow.
So that's quite a scale. But the other thing is as impressive as these are, they're only 45 to 60 years old. So when you think about how long these stands and systems can go and be healthy, imagine how they're going to look in 30 or 40 years from now.
Well, do you actually go through any cutting at this time, or what have you in your management plan? What are you actually doing with the stands as they stand?
We have all of our stands, and Jason will speak to this in a minute, digitized in a GIS system, and we basically have inventory data so we know the volumes and the growth. But at this point we choose to leave these stands intact, even though the conservation easement allows us to come in here and perform selection, even age management, partial cutting, timber stand improvement, all of the tools in the kit we still can do. But the owners right now, with the aesthetics and hunting being a very important part, at this point with immature sawtimber stands, the best strategy we feel like for the owners is to just let these stands continue to grow, and we'll probably manipulate them, 15, 20, 25 years from now. But right now it's just sit back and enjoy them and watch them grow.
Jason brings us up to date on the red-cockaded woodpecker safe harbor agreement that's enforced on the reserve at the present time, and he explains some of the activities involved in maintaining a viable RCW population.
Sure, Doug. We've got 11 red-cockaded woodpecker clusters on Sehoy and 19 on Enon.
Okay.
And what we've done is we've enrolled the property in a safe harbor agreement with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And what that allows us to do is set a baseline number for however many birds we have, and it provides us some legal avenues for taking care of the birds and not getting in trouble for it. And it provides us some opportunities for assistance with the Fish and Wildlife Service and private biologists, and allows us to manage for woodpeckers as well as manage for our quail, because it's really sort of the same deal. We have had some private biologists and Fish and Wildlife Service biologists come in and put in these inserts that allow the woodpeckers to immediately find a place to nest. It takes them anywhere from a year to, I've heard 10 years, to build a natural cavity. And so during that time they have to live out on the limb, a lot more susceptible to predators and that type of thing. So this just allows us to kind of help them out and doesn't really alter what we do at all.
Okay, as far as other management, in fact, the fact that they require more or less a clean understory, just really benefits the quail and turkey and every other deer, everything, wildlife populations.
So we get the biologists climb up the trees with a set of ladders, and they're a lot braver than I am. They're up there with the chainsaw cutting the hole out, stick that in there, put some wedges in, putty it up, spray a little white spray paint up there, and the birds just take to it like it was their own home. It's just tailor-made home.
One of the long-range goals is the gradual conversion to longleaf pine. John explains.
Well, Doug, what we have here is a classic example of our reforestation tactic on the farm. By trying to create and maintain this old growth forest structure, you get these natural holes. And so when they get of a certain size, typically 2 acres and bigger, we come in and we'll hand spray for site prep using herbicides. We'll lay out, flag, and GPS the boundaries, bring in a crew, typically under contract, hand apply a herbicide, do a prescribed burn, and then hand plant container longleaf, typically 500 trees per acre. And what we end up doing, we take this natural opening that's created its own shape, and then we've inserted the longleaf, which we can keep on with our fire regime. And then over time, now we can have future old growth structure. And then in a few years, maybe over the hill, there's another natural hole that'll form. And that's the extent of our reforestation. We don't do the conventional clear cut a stand, site prep, and plant. We actually go out and look for sparse holes and existing canopy gaps and do the insertions that way. That's kind of our strategy to create this forever old growth open forest structure.
We certainly hope you've enjoyed your visit to Enon Sehoy Plantation and our time with Cam, Jason, and John, perpetuating and managing a heritage for many generations, both now and into the future.